This is the legal team that fights for homeowners' rights. From the United Law Center, the Steve from AskSteveForFree.com, attorney Stephen Foondos.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Ask Steve for Free radio program. Today we've got a very interesting show, and it's a little bit different. Because today we're talking about an issue that is, it's going to be difficult for some of you to listen to. So I'm warning you now that you might hear some stories that are sort of graphic and have to do with children. And I learned of a term the other day in doing some of my reading, and this has to do with family law custody issues. And the term is court-ordered child abuse. And many of you out there may have heard of this term. I'm a little bit, I don't want to say embarrassed, but feel like I should have known that term before. And we have a special guest on today who is going to tell us quite a bit about this. And she has her own organization, the Little Voice Project. And the Little Voice Project is helping so many people trying to save their children from further abuse. So let me introduce Jennifer Kendall on the show today. Jennifer, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for having me here.
Jennifer is a lovely young lady who herself had difficulties and continues to have difficulties in maintaining the custody of her child, and has, as a result of that, it's been a 3-year battle, right?
5 years.
5 years, sorry, yeah. You started your own project to try to get people help.
I did. When everything first started happening between my son and I was very much like you. I had no idea that there was a term, court-ordered child abuse.
No one's like me, honey. Okay.
That's true.
I'll tell you that right now.
And so I thought that once we were in the family court system and once they found abuse had taken place in our case, that we would be safe and we would be protected. And unfortunately, that was really just the beginning of our nightmare. When my son was about 6 months old, we had an evidentiary hearing where we both presented our sides of the case. We presented evidence, and my ex was found physically abusive. And I really thought that once the judge recognized that my ex was abusive, that we would be okay. And I did what I think a lot of protective parents do, is I went in and I fought really, really hard to keep us safe. And I pretty much did everything wrong that a protective parent could possibly do.
Well, the natural reaction that I would have would be to make sure that my child had no contact with that parent.
Yes.
For fear of further abuse.
That was my exact reaction as well.
But apparently what happens is when you do that, you really have clanged the death knell, and just the opposite happens.
Yeah. And that was really, that was shocking to me. I think that, I'd been around a lot of people. I was very active in the community. I was actually on the board of directors of a domestic violence group here in Sacramento. And so I really felt that the courts would protect us once they knew that the abuse had taken place. I knew that it was an uphill battle to prove that the abuse had happened. But I thought that once that actually took place, once we proved it, once the judge, signed on the dotted line that she recognized that he was physically abusive, that we would be okay. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. And as I started to lose custody of my son, that's really when I kind of went out and thought, what is going on here? Why can't I figure this out? Why can't I keep us safe? And that's when I started to realize that there's this term, court-ordered child abuse, that this has been going on for about 15 years now in the family courts. And that's what led to me starting the Little Voice Project.
Yeah. And the family courts, there are judges there and there are people that are trying to do good things. But from my research, it's broken. And right now there are, all kinds of investigations going on, not only in the Sacramento court system, but other court systems throughout California and the country, to try to restore justice if that's the situation. Although I've always said we don't have a justice system, or we have a legal system. And sometimes justice can be found, but we're all human and we are victims of our own tendencies, whatever they may be. So, but I was interesting. It was, I was amazed actually to find out that 85% of cases where there is a custody battle, the parent who has been found to have been abusive ends up with the child. And that's from the American Judges Foundation, and that's their own survey or statistics that they have provided. That is an incredible number, even if it's off by 90%, to have any child be directed into the hands of an abusive parent when the other parent has not been found abusive. I don't get it. Now, we're going to talk about later a paradox that is in the codes that sort of allows for this. But when we get back, I'm going to talk to you about some stories of exactly what we're talking about. And they are going to be kind of hard to listen to, but you got to hear what's happening. So this is the Ask Steve for Free show. If you want to call in, 921-1530. This is a very special show, and I hope you continue to listen. We'll be right back. And welcome back, folks. Thanks for joining us on the Ask Steve for Free show. I am Steve. Actually, my name is Stephen, so call me Stephen. If you want to give a chime in today, 921-1530 is the number. We've got a very interesting show going on today with special guest Jennifer Kendall from the Little Voice Project, and she's here talking about what she's doing to try to save children from further physical and abusive parents. So, Jennifer, we were talking about your case, and right now we can't talk too much about it because you're still trying to get your child back.
Yes.
You haven't seen him for
3 years.
3 years. You don't know where the father or the child is right now. So, that's ongoing. But here's the deal. There are, 58,000
Yes, so 58,000 children every year are court-ordered into the hands of documented abusers. So right now, our organization is trying to bring home about 500,000 children.
Let me give you a taste of what happens. Now, there are, I have a list of hundreds of cases here that I could read, and they're just short little blurbs of what happened. One instance, Mr. Wyatt Garcia the child, Wyatt Garcia, was killed by the father in a murder-suicide during unsupervised visitation. Mother had filed for 3 protective orders, but all were denied. Another case, father was suspected of disappearance of wife, Susan. Boys told family they did not want to see dad. Father had been ordered to undergo psychological treatment and sexual abuse treatment before being allowed to regain custody. Father shut the door on social worker and sent her running. The father hit the boys with a hatchet, set the house on fire, and then killed the boys. Child Matthew Henderson murdered by father with an axe after father was previously convicted of domestic violence.
That's the case that happened right here in Natomas. That's a Sacramento case.
Yes, you can see that in Sacramento B. Another one from Sacramento, protective parent Kelly Rutherford. Father took children out of country and hasn't returned to U.S., claiming visa was revoked. No evidence that the visa was revoked. Father failed to reapply for a visa, and now the child or children are gone. I don't know. These are all the same. Where I'm looking over these, and it goes on and on and on about how children are either killed or set on fire, abused.
It's very overwhelming. At our organization, we get about 1 to 3 phone calls a week that we've lost another little person because of court-ordered child abuse, and it needs to stop.
There's one case here where the father put the girl into a sort of sex slave, what's that called?
Sex trafficking?
Sex trafficking, yeah. After the mother pleaded with the court to not have the child go to the father because of that threat. So, again, I can go on and on. And here's the problem, because I would imagine, I can tell you right now, if I was in that situation and I knew that my spouse or what have you was very abusive, first of all, my children right now are 13 and 15, and I've taught them how to protect themselves, so I feel pretty safe. But nevertheless, if they were younger, or what, even now, but if they were younger, I don't know what I would do. I would, and that's the point, is people will go to any lengths to try to save their child. And so you don't want this child going back to an abused parent. So what do? You fight to make sure that they don't. But as you do that, the court looks at you as the bad person. So there's these two conflicting family law codes, and I'm not a family law attorney. If there are any out there, that'd be great if you called in and maybe, gave your 2 cents on what's happening. But Family Code 3044 basically is that if a parent has been proven to be abusive, that they basically can't have custody, abusive either to the child or to the parent, that they can't be given custody. But there's another provision that says that the child should go to the parent that is most willing to let the other parent stay in the child's life. So I can see why you would want that, to try to get parents to work with one another, so there'd be joint custody. But as soon as you do that, you are labeled uncooperative. But in this case, why would you be cooperative in allowing your child to be given to someone who has been proven abusive? But when you do, you get yourself further away from having your child. And that's what happened to you.
That's exactly what happened to me. I went into court and I fought with everything I possibly could to keep us safe. And eventually I was labeled the parent that just would not get along. I did everything wrong that a protective parent, in your head, you think you're doing everything right. But in the eyes of the court, you're doing absolutely everything wrong.
No, that's just wrong, because your instinct should, the court should follow what human instinct is. And your human instinct is to save your child. And again, there are lots of problems in the system that needs to be fixed.
Jennifer, did you have good evidence of the abuse?
Yes, we did, which
Because
is
you
why the judge
have
found
to have good evidence.
We did. And that's the thing that we really try really hard to get across, is all of the cases that we deal with, the abuse has been proven. So we don't even touch the he said, she said cases. Unfortunately, we can't take them on as clients. The only people that we can take on are the ones that submit the documentation that the abuse has been founded.
Medical testimony or eyewitness evidence, photographs.
Correct.
Okay, because I could, that's what I was just going to say. What about the other side of the coin, where a parent has been hasn't really abused, and there's a story that's been made up, or false accusations or whatnot, and I'm sure that happens all the time. But in these instances, you only take cases where there's absolute evidence of wrongdoing and physical abuse and so forth and so on.
Correct. So there's an idea that in the family courts, a lot of people are claiming abuse, but the abuse doesn't actually exist. Statistically, if somebody is talking about abuse, if they're willing to walk into a courtroom, sit in front of their abuser, and tell their story, that 97% of the time they are telling the truth. So this idea that there are all these people just walking into the family courts and they're talking about abuse that doesn't happen, I think we all know that there are some cases out there like that. Those are not the cases that we are dealing with.
Now, there are lots of things. I know there's a thunderstorms that are happening. I got to take a quick break here in a second, but So let me do that. And when we get back, we're going to talk about how this system can be fixed and what you can do to help generate, to make things better. So this is the Ask Steve Free Show. Give us a call here. 921-1530 is the number. Don't be shy. Pick up the phone and call. Thanks. We'll be right back.
News at the top and bottom of every hour, 24 hours a day. NewsRadio KFBK.
And welcome back to the Ask Steve for Free Show. I am your host, Attorney Stephen Foondos from the United Law Center, and here talking to you today about aspects of the law, and particularly family law. And we're talking with Jennifer Kendall from the Little Voice Project. And, I want to make it clear to everyone out there that the show today is not about Jennifer and her case. The show today is about the legal system that we have and some of the pitfalls or problems that need to be fixed when you see so many cases where, I don't know, Jennifer, you gave a statistic about how many, something like 500,000.
500,000 children right now need to come home. And there are a lot of factors that lead up to court-ordered child abuse. I mean, if it was just one thing, it would be easy to fix. This is not about a whole bunch of judges out there that are evil and just love to give children.
I'm sorry, but there are lots of players involved here. You've got CPS, you've got mediators, you've got evaluators, you have counselors, you have psychiatrists that are all involved in one way or another in the process. And of course, whether people like to be as objective and as honest as possible, but I've seen it in the industry that we fight against, the banking industry, the corporate cronyism that happens, and how when you've got government and big corporations together, where's the small guy supposed to go when something happens to them? And that's why United Law Center is, we take on huge institutions, and for the little guy, we're there trying to help the best we can. Now, in some aspects, it's sort of like that here, where you've got a judicial system that's relying on different people who are getting paid for their services.
There are a lot of people making a lot of money off of these cases. That is correct.
Right. So, for example, the whole industry of, the people that go out and check for supervision, supervised visits and whatnot. And as I said, just mediators, counselors, all those people make money, right?
There are a lot of people, like you said, from the supervised visitors to the counselors to the mediators. That is their livelihood, is these cases. And unfortunately, what we have found in doing our research and what people have uncovered is that most of those people don't have the proper education or the licenses, which is why a new law is trying to go into effect, that if you work for the family courts and you're a counselor, you should have a license. These are the type of things that we are trying to bring up at the Little Voice Project.
Yeah. I mean, there's another horrible story that I was just reading about a 14-year-old girl. The mother was fighting to have custody because of suspicious conduct on behalf of the father, where he would dress her up and so forth and so on. And the court recognized that she was paranoid, in particular in regards to her husband's actions. And then the daughter was found to be molested, sexually abused, and killed by the father. So I just, you start wondering where you start to fix it. And I I don't know. Where's the start?
So there are a couple factors that lead to this, which I think that we need to start to take a closer look at. The first that most people do not know is that if you cannot afford an attorney in the family courts, one is not provided to you. You are expected to represent yourself, and you're held to the same standards as any lawyer.
So that is a problem, and I've talked about this often on the show, and have told people that when a civil wrong happens to you, you have the obligation as a citizen to take action, because we are the gatekeepers of the civil law. If we don't prosecute it, it doesn't get prosecuted. But herein lies the rub. You need an attorney. And trying to find a good attorney is not always easy. Another thing that we're trying to do at United Law Center is, no matter which one you go to or who you speak to, you're going to get the truth about your case, good or bad or whatever. And in this instance, where someone is trying to find an attorney, the old line is, it's always too late before you find out they're not any good, and or part of the system. And we're hearing, there's investigations going on right now in all kinds of court districts throughout California with a certain amount of cronyism going between the family court judges and the Third Appellate District. So,
right. I think that, you have to take a look at that a lot of lawyers moonlight as judges. And so that plays a role in the decisions of these cases. We have to take a look at the fact that these decisions are not made by jurors. These decisions are made by one judge who is acting in the idea of what is in the best interest of a child, but that best interest of a child has never really been defined. And so they're really just going off of what they believe is in the best interest of a child.
It always amazes me how, I've been hearing about this lion that was killed all week now. And I don't want to see a lion killed. But I hear all these stories about children being killed, and you don't hear about it.
You never hear about it on the news.
What is it with children? Do people just not like children?
No, I think people love children, but for whatever reason, it's really hard to get the attention of the public. And when it comes to children, one thing that's really interesting
is it just because of there's so much, you don't want to get involved with, if you're a friend of a couple, you don't want to get involved in their marriage because it gets so messy, right?
I think it actually goes deeper than that. I think that if you look at statistically, 1 in 3 women will experience domestic violence or sexual assault. 1 in 7 men will experience domestic violence or sexual assault. That means we have a lot of people out there that are in a lot of pain. And listening to stories of children that have been abused and are in horrific situations and are forced to live with dangerous people, when they already have that pain inside their heart, they don't want to be taken back to those experiences. So it's easier to click off the page and not watch the video or turn the magazine page than actually to listen to what's happening to these kids and to do something about it. It has been really hard for us to get the attention of the public.
That's amazing. I mean, because now you have a child who is helpless. They don't have the ability to defend themselves. They don't have the ability. They don't know what's going on. And that child is only going to turn out to be maybe an abuser himself or herself because of what's happened.
Correct. I mean, that is where the cycle of abuse comes from, is exactly what you just said. And these children, what's so horrific about these cases is that a child has to tell an adult, typically 7 different adults, their story of abuse before somebody finally listens to them. That means these kids told their story, and they were very brave, and they sat on the stand and they talked about what happened to them, and everyone agreed that something very bad happened to them, and then they forced the child to go to that person anyway. To me, there's nothing more tragic happening in the United States right now than is what is happening to these kids.
Well, you could be right. I have a lot of cases regarding homes, though. It's killing me, too, but that also involve children. But this is something much, I don't know how you can compare a house to a child and the death of a child as a result of, misconduct by the system. So, all right, this is the Ask Steve for Free show. We're going to be right back. Give us a call, 921-1530. This is a difficult subject, I know, so nevertheless, we're here to talk. This is This is an interesting topic. Okay, we'll be right back. Thanks very much.
Keep listening to iHeartRadio for more from your favorite artists.
Okay, thanks for coming back, folks. The Ask Steve for Free show. This is our last quarter. Show went fast today. All right, so Jennifer, there are so many problems with the system. Like you said, that there is no attorney that's provided to you like there is in criminal cases. I think that's something that would be interesting in cases involving child custody issues, to have a jury make that decision and take it out of the court's hands and the factual issues that have to be decided. There's no court reporter, and that's a result of cuts. I remember when I was practicing so often that there was always a court reporter. Now you got to pay for one, right, John?
Exactly. You have to pay for a court reporter.
It's crazy.
Besides paying for the attorney.
Right. Yeah. So there's no jury, which, again, seems strange that you wouldn't have a jury in these cases, particularly involving a child. I mean, this is a child. I don't know.
But that would be a tough situation for a jury. I mean, these kind of cases could take, weeks to try. But yet, on the other hand, what do you have? You have one person, one judge.
Yeah.
With all of their...
With so many cases...
One judge deciding who gets custody, and there's no middle ground, because in family law cases, it's, I think, rare or almost impossible. It's been years since I've done family law, where a judge could say, okay, we'll give the child half and half, 1 week and 1 week, that just doesn't happen. Either one person gets custody and one person gets visitation, and that's it. And there's rarely no middle ground. And you make that decision, that's it. And once the decision is made, to go back and try to change it later on, almost impossible.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think that what's important is that we keep coming back to the fact that these cases, it's been proven that the abuse exists. So the fact that there even needs to be a 7-day trial afterwards to decide where the child should go is ridiculous to us. Once abuse has been found in a case, the court should move quickly and swiftly to make sure that the abusive person does not get custody of the children.
Have you tried to work with the legislature at all about this? There could be a law passed, I'm not sure if it's in the works, and you're smiling so I can tell maybe you're trying to do something to that effect, that if there is evidence of abuse, then there should be a presumption that it should go to the other parent.
Correct. So one of the things that I am going to be doing is starting on December 1st, walking county by county through the state of California for 7 months and sitting down with the district attorneys, judges, lawyers, law enforcement, and trying to answer some of these questions, because I think everybody recognizes something's gone very wrong in this family court system. And I think that it's just going to take us sitting down to come up with what laws could we pass to make sure that these children are protected.
What about going through the initiative process? I know that's long and cumbersome, but I can't imagine if there was a issue or a vote on the ballot that if there's proven abuse, that there was a presumption, maybe even conclusive.
But there is that. There is already a law, 3044, that says that if the parent has been deemed to have been abusive to the child or to the other parent, that parent doesn't get the child. But you have the other provision that says that the parent that is not willing to work with the other parent or want the other... Actually, the child goes to the parent that is most willing to have the other parent involved in the child's life. Okay, so if you go against that and say, no, this guy is abusive to the child, I don't want him in his life at all, because it seems ridiculous to send a child to someone who's abusive. Well, the more you do that, the further away the judge now is labeling you as someone who's not cooperative, and you don't even want to work with me here.
Well, sounds like that law should be cleaned up, and you're working on that.
We will be working on that.
So
and also, we want to look at the accountability of those that made this decision. I think that's really what we need to take a closer look at, is how do we hold a judge responsible if they make the decision to put a child in the hands of somebody they knew was dangerous, and then that child dies.
Right. So there's the California Coalition for Families, and you got to look them up, because they have a lawsuit right now that's going to change the 1986 law that gives judges total immunity. And good or bad, maybe it's time for a change. Personally, I think that would be a good thing, because now you would have more accountability. So I do have a caller. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to take her, but because we only got about a minute, maybe real quick. Kelly, you're on the air with Steve Foondos. How can we help you?
Hi, I just have a real quick question. I'm currently in a domestic violence situation with myself and my children, and the father had a move-out order. We're currently in a case that's been going on probably for the last 5 months, and the children have been ordered to go to reunification counseling, but the father has not been ordered to do any counseling himself prior to that, and I'm very confused on why they would request for our children to have reunification counseling if the father hasn't had counseling for his domestic.
That's a great question.
Prior.
That's a great question, and I think you're going down the wrong path, maybe. Kelly's shaking Jennifer's shaking her head here. Unfortunately, we don't have time to answer your question. I feel terrible, but we're going to get your number and
have her call the Little Voice Project.
Yeah.
We can help her out.
littlevoiceproject.org. littlevoiceproject.org, and also watch for Jennifer's walk across California, and hopefully you have scheduled times with everyone. So
we do.
All right, this is the Ask Steve for Free show. Another show has gone by. Give us a call at United Law Center, 916-367-0622, or simply go to unitedlawcenter.com, unitedlawcenter.com, unitedlawcenter.com. All right, we'll see you next week.
More traffic reports than any other station. News Radio KFBK Sacramento, KBEB HD2 Sacramento.